get started. I'll wave the people up there. Did everybody have a chance to either look the minutes over? Are there any corrections, additions, substitutions? Hearing none, may I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Oh, the secretary moves. All in favor?
Aye.
Great. Well, I'll wait for Diane to show up for the next item on the agenda. So let's go into the feedback from the presentation last night. Katie, what do you think?
It was really well attended.
How many do you think?
So I would say probably around 60 people.
Oh, good.
Excellent.
Which
At least,
is,
yeah.
which is by far in excess of any other PTO meeting I've seen. So that was really great. Feedback after the meeting was really positive. I think that people were, first and foremost, just really happy that we came in front of them to share information. And second, everyone seemed to like what they heard as far as what was planning, what was going into it, the number of people and layers that were involved. So all around, good.
Yeah, the people who presented were myself, Diane, and Randy answered all the questions. I know he had provided information on the sizing of the school and everything else. And I think, yeah, I thought it went pretty smoothly. It was about a half hour long, total time?
Yeah.
About a half hour short. I don't remember any, there were questions concerning, when construction began, would there be total separation and safety and all that stuff, and we assured them that ONG would make sure that there's
Electrified fences.
electrified fence, that's right.
Guard dogs.
To the workers.
Well, but Kay also
Choose the voltages.
mentioned that all the workers on site they had to check in so that we weren't going to have people wandering around who came from the outside, just wandering around, so. But that was kind of the only real questions that
There
came
was a
up.
question about the demo of the portion of the existing building. What do we
Right.
call that, the interim or whatever? So what's the thought on that? Are the other ELP locations going to absorb those classrooms? 'Cause
That's
those
what
are
the administration's working on right now.
Okay, so it's under,
Yeah, there was a meeting. We went
Review.
to it.
We went to it.
David was there.
Last third.
You were there. It
Just you and
was
I.
last Wednesday, wasn't it?
He
Wednesday.
wasn't there.
Yeah, I was there.
And you were there. And so there was a lot of discussion, and it's ongoing.
Right.
As to how much of the building they have to close off and what they can do with the court. I guess using some of the courtyards to turn them into classrooms,
Yeah.
possibly.
Luke had
Yeah.
provided like a map to scale of the building, and we sort of talked about what rooms would have to go and what rooms might be able to
Awesome.
switch around. So Dave and Amy had talked about if 2 classrooms needed to be built inside one of the enclosed courtyards, how that might work so that there was egress and natural light.
To
Awesome.
update you on that, because you left a little early, those courtyards are a lot smaller than shown on
The drawing.
the drawings. David popped up an aerial view, and I had the actual drawings, and we're going, whoops, there's no room we were looking at 2 classrooms plus an area that's still open to allow light in.
Not gonna happen.
Not gonna happen.
Get one of your skylights open.
Well, what may happen, we can go right into this next one. Just for those of you who weren't there, we met and chatted about it, and we think we made some headway. Luke was great, because he's combining some classrooms and moving some here and all that there, but it still leaves us with a shortage of space.
So we'll have to have some.
Correct.
More temporary.
More temporaries. Now, we hope to keep it inside. Luke was very not adamant, but wants that very much so, to keep everything, if we can, inside the building.
Right.
But at the most, you're going to get 1 classroom out of each
Courtyard.
of those courtyards. They do present some problems from a construction point of view. There's vents, there's air conditioners that stick out there, anyhow, David is looking at how to best, if we can, do it. The good news is, because it's small, you can span it fairly easily. But that's only one option.
Right.
We have a shortage of bathrooms, not just because of ones that are being taken out, but because we're adding so many kids down on the west side, there's just not enough bathrooms going on for the kids, so that's going to be looked at. Minimally, I think it's probably going to be 2 portables. Each portable over a 2-year period is about $120,000 at this.
$4,000 a month, right?
4,800.
48, call it 5,000 for one. Okay.
So you're talking with 2, if we do 2 portables, it's $250,000
Yeah.
just for 2. So Amy went back and did come up with a little chart as to what's moved and what our whole discussion was about, but there's still a need to find more additional space.
And then you'll need to do an assessment as to what the costs are to construct those
Right.
rooms versus just doing 4 portables instead
Correct.
of construction on
Correct.
those courtyards.
Yeah, it's not going to be inexpensive. There are certain compromises that Luke can shed more light on than I can in doing this, in sharing and moving, and I mean, Luke's office goes down to 50 feet. I'm just kidding. He said he didn't care.
I thought you were going to use your car.
His car, that's right.
Car.
That's a better
I was
idea.
getting a temporary spot at the main building, main
So
office.
has the administration, have you guys not made a decision, but have you looked at, can those ELP classes be absorbed into other schools for that time frame?
Yeah, we've looked at particularly over Tokenique, particularly over Tokenique, and it looks like we'll be able to manage that at Tokenique. I'm close to signing off on, like, yes.
Yeah,
that's
yeah. No,
definitely,
no, just-
We walked out this week.
I mean, it's not a-
Pretty
it's-
confident that we'll be able to, because that's predicated on that decision.
Right, right. It's not a definite, no, we can't move them to another school.
It's more likely we can.
Possibility. Yeah,
That's awesome.
One of the other things we've looked at, and Nick and I particularly have looked at it, is cutting back on the demolition just a little bit. And just maybe one little strip of area, if that's possible, that would pretty much solve the problems. If we had, we don't know if it's doable or not because of the design and the room needed for construction. So next steps are, this young man is looking at the costs of some of those various alternatives, and Amy's trying to figure out if this is actually going to work.
When will you come to a decision as to the actual, how much of the building has to be demolished and the number of, space required for safety in construction?
Pretty soon.
I mean, we'll need a good handle on the actual floor plan, and we will need some information, I think, as far as where things are going structurally, foundation-wise, and
Foundation,
and
yeah.
really, elevation is plays into it a lot. Where the new building falls in elevation in relationship to the existing school
Okay,
is a big difference, because to look at it two-dimensionally on paper is one thing, but to go there, to see those drastic differences in grade from, as you go down those ramps,
Huge.
yeah,
and it could make construction easy, or it could make it very difficult to try to shrink those margins between construction and the occupied school.
for just a rough guideline, middle of October, we'd have a good handle on that, later?
I mean, I would think we're gonna, as far as how much to demolish,
Yeah,
well, yeah, we're gonna need something, because when we do our SD estimate, which starts the last week of October,
right.
we're gonna need to have that estimate reflect.
The demolition,
It's
construction,
gonna have to reflect whatever the temporary work is that we're
Yeah,
gonna do for
right.
this first phase or not. So, yeah, we're gonna have to do that. And it may change when we do the DD estimate, but we will have to be specific as to cost for that.
okay. All right,
Knowing where that assembly wing is gonna be that's a major component right now.
right,
As soon as they can iron out what needs to happen for that assembly wing and where it falls, then we can really start to assess
Right.
how much we can leave.
okay. Luke, I didn't want to take away the opportunity to mention how the presentation went last night? I know Katie talked about it, but you weren't here.
I'm sorry, it was terrific.
Oh.
Thank you to the members who joined us last evening. It really
Write that
was.
down.
It really was.
I have fantastic.
We're going to give you a raise.
It was just organized well and received well by our families and community members who came. There were a few questions that you were all able to, very thoroughly kind of give some thinking to, and just walking everyone through all the hard work the committee's done so far, I think was really useful. So, yeah, so thank you both.
Good. Diane, we skipped over the first item number 3 because you weren't here, but this is the, just to give us an update on the schematic, where we are on the schematic design, sort of a rough idea.
Certainly. Well, we haven't met since our last meeting because we're meeting immediately after this one. So we had kind of recapped last week on 2 weeks ago on where we were. So in this meeting, the plan is to continue to review floor plans. They're going to come back with some revisions based on the meeting 2 weeks ago. They're going to provide us with some interior character studies and some preliminary renderings. And I think that most of the time in the meeting is probably going to be spent working with the MEP engineer. I think they're going to present for the first time their ideas for the mechanical, electrical, plumbing systems. So the engineers will be present, and we're going to discuss options and go through their recommendations.
I think that, I don't know if you all saw the give and take between Diane and, is it Dean Ober, but it seemed that the focus in terms of exteriors was that we would keep the exterior of the building looking more traditional, in keeping with the neighborhood, in keeping with a school, a New England school, whereas the interior on the courtyard side could have more of a whimsical, I don't want to call it avant-garde, but a more interesting approach, creative approach, because the courtyard would be all within inside the school. That was sort of the hint that we were getting. Of course, given his druthers, Dean would make it look modern all the way around.
Well, the building plan has a lot of different pieces that kind of shift and turn, and I think we discussed as a group that it might be valuable to have some kind of simple material qualities to the exterior to tie all that together. And so I think they're going to be presenting some of that today. But as you said, I think it is a school for children, and there's going to be some color and some really interesting teachable moments throughout the interior. So I think the interiors are going to have some more color excitement, and the outside will be a little bit more staid, as you said. We'll see.
Rusty and I will both take a pass when it comes to asking what color we want, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Aesthetics are not my
Thankfully.
thing.
You're on that bandwagon too? Okay.
What was I going to ask? When it comes to, when will they post the next series of like these renderings and everything else?
Well, they should be able to post it immediately after the meeting.
After the meeting?
Because they're
Okay.
there at the meeting. Minutes, hopefully you can follow within a couple days. But
Okay.
we'll make sure we talk about that at the meeting today, that they post
It
immediately.
was over a week last time.
For
the
the slides.
presentation, yeah.
Yeah, the slides should show up
Yeah.
right away on the website.
When you say renderings, at the end of schematic design, which is at the end of this month, is that the schedule roughly?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, so what will they have from a elevations and facade perspective? As I'm thinking about the Architectural Review Board and what they need to see, is when I hear renderings, I kind of think about like the kind of sketches, or are these going to be actual CAD type of preliminary CAD drawings with?
They're working, I mean, eventually, and I assume they're already started, they're working on this BIM modeling system
Oh,
where
okay.
the whole building is basically built on the computer, and then you just look at it a lot of different ways. So they'll be able to present whatever drawings are needed in that respect. So we should see elevations and three-dimensional views, as well as plans, and I don't think there'll be really any interior, maybe major spaces, but
Yeah.
for the most part, I think all
All they care about is the
exterior-
envelope
Yeah, the exterior envelope images.
and the roof line
certainly-
and everything else.
Right.
And they'll care about the materials, colors, all that type of
Correct.
stuff. So that'll all be in there
At least for the exterior.
For the exterior.
Maybe an idea for the interior.
by the end of the month, you think?
Yes.
Okay.
Mhm. Is that adequate for the?
Yeah, for the November
presentation?
meeting, that'll be fine. I think they'll care about whether or not it's mostly baked in. So do you think we'll have another moment as a committee where we all kind of vote on that or agree on?
Absolutely.
gonna
In
come up with-
fact, we need
Yeah.
to talk about that at the meeting today, when that's appropriate,
Okay.
whether it's the very end of schematic design, or we talked initially about there maybe being an interim period through schematic design when it's presented to, the progress is presented to the whole committee for review.
Okay.
And then, so we'll talk about it at the meeting today, when that seems appropriate. I think the posting on the website and everybody taking a look and I think that's worked pretty well so far as a
Mhm.
communication device, but it would be nice to have the SLAM give a presentation to the whole committee relatively soon.
Okay.
Randy, is that just a one meeting or meeting, public hearing, deliberation, 2 to 3 meetings?
I think it depends on how thorough of a package we have
Mhm.
for November. I think we might be able to knock it all out in one meeting if we legitimately have enough to be able to say, this is what it's going to look like. But more to come. I'm going to talk to Jeremy tomorrow, who I think I don't know if he's officially on that review board, but he's kind of like he attends all the meetings. So we're going to go through whether or not this will be a multiple. Hopefully not. But, what he did tell me yesterday in the conversation was, effectively, you need their blessing to go to planning and zoning. Like
Right.
yeah, they have to. Even though they're not a deciding body, they have to bless it in order for P&Z to actually really review your project.
One question that I'm now reminded of, that was asked yesterday, was that one of the parents mentioned that the wetlands at the western end, I guess, at northwestern corner, and her comment was, well, if you have that whole area as a field, will it be greater water retention, or will it have?
Will it be muggy there?
Will it be
You're right,
muddy and all
yeah,
that?
Yeah, exactly.
And we haven't looked at that closely yet, but your answer was really that with open fields, it ought to have more water retention, ability to drain the water properly. But we'll have to look at that.
Yeah,
Whether that's an EPC issue or not, I don't know.
right.
We thought we didn't have any
Right.
EPC issues.
It might be. Drainage.
David, didn't you mention, I thought that, go back to the state at the end of schematic design, the committee doesn't have to have totally signed off on everything, is that correct? Okay.
Actually, hold on a second. For SDR, no, there isn't a Board of Ed or building committee approval that's required. There is
An estimate.
The whole checklist, that packet.
Yes.
And the state submission estimate has to be completed.
Right.
But there is no
So
formal approval that has to be.
If we delay our approval, or if we have still questions that we're debating, it doesn't slow up the process of going to the state, which is good to know. Okay. Anything else on that? All right. For those who went to the Eversource and the SES commissioning meeting and brought back all these lovely papers for us to fill out. Fill out. Fire away. What was interesting was that, did you bring up the issue last night about the high performance standard of?
No, that was Diane.
Diane, so when people talk about sustainability, I mean, they probably didn't even know that high performance building standards were already now required by the state. So a lot of this is, and that's the Silver Leads, right?
Silver League equivalent. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So
You guys are on.
I'll cover the Eversource, and I will turn it over to Nick, who again volunteered to take care of the commissioning part.
Luckily.
Well, actually, we met with Eversource for our official kickoff meeting. It's kind of a standard type of meeting. There were a bunch of us there, and we met for the first time with the modeler. Tomasetti. Yep. Very good, smart guy. Seems to know what he's doing, very practical sounding, which is always a good thing to hear. Some of the highlights, Eversource, of course, would love us to build a net neutral building. and has
Just bring the money.
some additional incentives. That's exactly what I said. And what the modeling does is they take all the potential measures that you can use in the building and determines individually what they can contribute to reduction in gas or electric. And then they put them together because they all are interrelated, and you see where you are, and you can pull out some measures, put them back in, and a lot of it depends on the cost. Could we get to net neutral? Sure we could. At what cost, though? And so I made it abundantly clear that we're going to be looking at payback period and total cost of this whole endeavor. When we kind of went down that road, they did say that all of a sudden they've got a little flexibility to help us along if we need it, which you don't usually hear from them.
They're very motivated. They don't
Yeah,
have
they
a
have
building that's net,
School.
a public school that's net zero, and they're really enthused
Yeah.
about putting some, I don't know if it's appropriate for our school considering the layout with a courtyard and whatnot, but
Yeah,
we
and
can.
you're right, certain things in our design do not contribute, in fact,
Pod
probably.
design in the
And
courtyard.
lots of glass
there are a
and
lot of
all that
exterior
stuff.
walls. so.
A lot of natural light, though.
Yes, that's the good part, that's what we
Yes.
want. Anyhow, it was a kind of their standard presentation. In terms of a timeline, you don't really need this. We had the design charrette. Do we have, did you get the agreement that I sent you?
Yes.
Okay, so the commissioning agent, SLAM, and the building committee have to sign off. It's a standard proposal. You're gonna get this if you do this, that, and this, and the other. And then they will start immediately on early modeling. So as soon as we get that up to them, we have 30 days to get it to them. I'd like to get it earlier.
They have to model off our schematic design.
Yes,
Right.
and they have that. They have,
Well,
they haven't
still
got the most
developing
updated. As soon as, we're gonna have to keep updating them on that. And then you go right into DD and then construction drawings, and so it follows our whole regular schedule.
Okay.
And the model will be coming up, and Amy and Greg is SLAM's energy efficiency person. He'll be working closely with the modeler and making sure that they're considering any and all types of measures that we could probably put in there. I mean, everything from the big items to, the little control units on the vending machines. It's a wide range. So that is officially kicked off.
Do they need to know the direction we're going in with outside materials as they do the modeling?
They will,
Yeah.
yes, because different materials have
Right.
different properties to them. Yeah, this is why they're going to follow us along.
Okay.
And we're going to have to keep them updated and work together with them.
And the fact that SLAM has a sustainability expert on their staff makes that, I think is going to make that transition very clean and easy. So they know what information they need to funnel to Eversource and guide that process.
One of the things that we are going to have to coordinate is all the efforts with Eversource and all the efforts with SES and the commissioning and the needs that we have to meet on the high-performance building with the state. And we're going to have to meet on that fairly soon.
Yeah, just to make sure that everybody, and myself more importantly, is clear on this. SES, our commissioning agent, is the focal point of making sure we meet high-performance building standards, correct?
Yes.
Eversource is just supplying one of those inputs to them.
Correct.
Okay, I just want to
Yeah.
make sure I understand. So it's SES really that we turn to?
Yes.
And SLAM.
And SLAM.
No, exactly. yeah.
Three of them are.
Okay.
Now, the only issue, again, that we have to have a little chat with our friends up in Hartford is they have the tendency sometimes, if you get Eversource to write you a check for $350,000, they deduct $350,000 from your
Grant?
grants.
Of course they do.
That could wipe out our entire grant.
Practically, at this point, we may be net negative. So we They have been talking with the state about that, and so we're gonna have to relatively aggressively address that with Costas and company. If you want us to be high performance plus, then you're gonna have to not do that.
It wipes out any incentive.
Wipes out everything.
There's no incentive if the incentive is deducted out of the money you were going to
I
get.
use the example that state was trying to promote the use of photovoltaic solar panels, and they offer incentives and all that stuff to do that. And the problem was that the municipalities, if you put a $2 million solar panel system on your building, they would look at that as an enhancement in the value of the building, and it would be added to the value of the building when it came down to property taxes. So you would actually lose money. And it took them 4 or 5 years to fix that.
Excellent.
Yeah,
Excellent.
government at its best.
Well, Nick, I should tell you that I've received all these documents, and we have a owner's project requirements, which has, the engineer gives it, the owner does, I guess the architect does too. Please explain, because this is a lot of work.
Sure. So that's issued by SES, and the intent is just to kind of get everyone's buy-in and input on a holistic approach to the building, what they want to see in terms of either mechanical equipment or sound ratings, et cetera. Kind of touches all aspects of it. And it's really a guideline. Some of the stuff is already determined by default, just where we are in the process and decisions we've already made. But the intent is to get, buy-in from Mike and Luke and the committee, and then that goes to SES, they'll finalize it and work with the design team to kind of incorporate those elements.
There's a lot of technical questions in there.
Yeah.
Have you been through this, Dr. Adley?
Well, I just saw it next 10, I tell you. And
There are a lot of questions. I mean,
I think the commissioning agent made it clear that the purpose of these are not necessarily to answer every single question. It's to try and get as much information from each party involved in the process, so then everybody's on the same page. So then they can kind of see where answers are conflicting, so therefore, well, this is something you need to talk about. I think it's, so I think it's less a matter of forcing us to really answer all these questions and figure out what, go to all of our resources, but just in our understanding,
Right.
What is our answer to these?
Discussion points, I think
Yeah.
it's more of a guideline for the design team as well, just to make sure that they're incorporated.
when does this report, if you will, when is it actually due and where?
So.
Owner's project
it's-
requirements.
It's an internal document, it doesn't really.
Oh, it's not going to the state?
No.
Okay.
But I know SES is looking to get it back by this Friday, so we're trying to get it, they're okay with us getting it early next week. And SLAM and SES can help us out, or CES can help us out with that.
Yeah.
As well.
CES is the consultant for
Yeah.
Right,
SLAM.
and that communication, right, the goal was to have that coordination done, so there's an understanding of that, the information in that report before SLAM completes schematic design. That's the goal that we had set early on.
Okay.
So that's why we had to bring the commissioning agent on board, and it sounds like that's on track now. That-
Yep.
And
Okay.
today's SD meeting with the mechanical portion should play into that a lot and answer a lot of those questions as well.
Good.
This is really an exercise for us to determine sort of the philosophy that we want to establish for determining sustainability, so that we're looking
Yep.
at like what we think is important based on future functioning of the building, and not just down to who's incentivizing or not.
Exactly, it touches on a lot of different aspects, down to the occupancy and,
Right.
all that
Yeah,
stuff.
it's not just sustainability too, it's just about
All the
all
building.
aspects of the building, the way it
Yeah.
works, and just make sure everybody's on the same page, certain understandings.
Oh, by the way, we are having a 4-pipe
Oh,
heating air
absolutely.
conditioning system, right?
Yes.
Right?
Yep, so you
I
don't
don't- I
go
don't
from
care what the question
cold
there
and
is.
hot,
It's
and cold and
4-pipe.
hot, and no ability to change it,
It's not going to be
right?
the two, mhm, okay.
That's.
And air
The
conditioning,
whole purpose of that.
Well, okay,
air conditioning.
understood.
You sure?
That'd be good.
If Rusty has to fight that battle again.
Since meeting number 1. You sound very technical.
Probably had to turn it on
What's
yesterday,
four
right,
pipe?
You
Mike?
sound very technical.
I learned that. I learned that a long time
Every
ago.
meeting.
Mike Lynch taught me that early on.
So just to clarify, Nick, that's going to be turned back to SES next week?
Correct, yeah,
And
we'd like to
that's a
get
draft.
that, and compile one document with kind of unified responses, so that they don't get 10 different responses, and they can finalize that document and then discuss with SLAM and CES.
I think we're meeting Tuesday on that.
We'd like to, I'm not sure if that works for everyone, I know Greg, we
Can't
wanted
do it.
Greg from SLAM involved. he can't make Tuesday morning.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if Luke and company can either, so that's, and I also had to confirm with CES, so hopefully.
Is that his day off at school or not?
No, Wednesday is next week.
What's Wednesday?
Yom Kippur.
Yom Kippur.
I thought that was Tuesday.
Starts
Sorry.
Tuesday night.
Tuesday night, okay.
Yeah, we just received from Nick last evening, so I've been just checking it with Mike and Alan to see, we'll take a look at the report. I think schematic design today, we'll take a look at what we can get done, and then if we can be helpful, we will be helpful.
Okay.
There was one other document that was discussed at the meeting with the commissioning agent, and this is the ongoing state, I guess it's a checklist that SLAM has created as a way of better understanding, I guess it's a state checklist, but it's a document that SLAM has created, which we had seen previously, but it was empty, and now Greg at SLAM has worked on starting to fill in and with a yes, no, and maybe column as to which of these high-performance building standards we're going to elect to use in this process. So this would be valuable. We should make sure they post it on the website, and we can all take a look at it and react. This is SLAM's interpretation of the building as they see it, how we can meet the high-performance building standards, where the areas we need to decide yes or no, where the areas that just don't make sense considering the project to date. So this is, and I think they've really worked hard to put this into language that we can understand, taken the state definition, state high-performance building subject, and then really done some work into defining, explaining how we might meet it. So
Awesome.
this would be valuable to look through, and it's going to be ongoing with the work as SLAM develops the design, but we should certainly keep an eye on it, and anybody who's interested in the sustainability aspects of the building should spend some time and read through the document.
Do you have a printer that can do 11 by 17?
They gave this out to us at the meeting, so
Oh.
no.
And you
I'm gonna
can't
have-
read that anyhow, it's mouse type.
No, this is mouse type, the one that's about 8.5 and 11. That's not.
Dan, what was the name of that document?
Well, CETH PBS compliance checklist and schedule.
Great, I'll remember that.
It's the state's
I
just have
high-performance
Greg's.
building checklist that SLAM's just modified.
It was,
tracking chart.
Greg sent it out to, we'll get it to the web, we'll get it to.
Get it to
everybody on the
everybody.
committee. But it's gotta be, this is the only 2 pages that are printed 8.5 by 11, the rest of it needs the 11 by 17 to even read.
Yeah. And it's quite legible as an electronic document, so.
Okay,
And then, sorry, real quick, so also at SES, they distributed their proposed commissioning plan.
Right.
Based on RFP, kind of explain the overall process, and that'll be based on their specs for the project. So I can pass that around for everyone's review and kind of buy in on that. And then I've asked for SLAM and CES to comment on that as well, to make sure they're aligned with that. And they just reviewed the kind of overall design document issuances and those milestones so that they can follow in pace with that.
what they sent out, was this the design phase commissioning plan?
Yes, yep.
Okay, so this, there obviously is one during the construction, a different one.
There'll be
Yes.
one master document, but yeah, there's several different phases to it.
Different phases, okay. Yeah, I think everybody should get a copy of this. It's 16 pages, it's worthy of reading through.
And they'll develop a whole separate set of specifications, to very detailed, that'll.
Right.
And just, so I think we have the capability of posting onto this Oxbridge SLAM working website that we've been working on. So we could also, as a way of as a way of disseminating this information, we could certainly just email it out as well, but just to have everybody be able to keep track and be able to have a place on their computer they can continually find these things.
So we should ask SLAM to put it, to have a segment on their website which covers the commissioning.
Yes,
Yeah.
I think that would be valuable. Yeah.
That way we can get all the documents there, we can read them when we want, when we need to.
Yeah.
I wanted just to mention that in the presentation yesterday, I said that our target date for construction of the building was November of 2020, completion of the building in July of 2022, which is 21 month. Dave was looking at me saying, why'd you tell? I said target. I told him target.
That's good.
Target. And then I said demolition, final landscaping, and final paving starting in June, July of 2022, completed in the fall of 2022. Now, this is where we're tight, because right now, we probably drift into the winter, and when the asphalt plant closes, and we don't have paving, period. We can't plant grass in the middle of December. So we're talking about breaking the construction into 2 phases, correct? Am I saying the right words?
Right. We are definitely going to pursue 2 phases of construction, one that's enabling and then one that's the rest of the building. But as I mentioned to you when I sent the email the other day, is that we have to have a discussion about how much we can include in the first
In the
phase
enabling.
of the work.
Right.
Because I'm getting some feedback that the state is cautious about how much work you put in that first phase without them having a confirmed understanding of the rest of the project.
Who at the state?
That would be feedback that we would get from Barbara and Kermit.
Okay. You gotta go up there.
Yeah.
Well, I'm just hoping that by the time we've gotten through schematic design and halfway through design development, that they'll have confidence that we know what we're talking about.
Right.
And we can get it done, because it would be a big help to have everything paved, landscaped, done by the fall of 2022.
Right. If we can, right now, the start of the main construction is really what's driving things.
Right.
The path from now until we're ready to bid the entire project, that's what's confining us as far as running up against the end of the summer in 2022 to the point where it's, it's got to be, we got to do something there, right? Because right now we're not showing a July finish of that building.
You said construction start November
Yeah.
of next year?
2020, yes.
Right.
Is there any way to move that up to,
September.
well, or whatever, as
That's
much
what
as
we're trying.
possible, yeah, I mean, through acceleration of design and everything else, I mean,
We're working at it.
okay.
Yeah.
We're working at it. Okay, is there anything else that people want to talk about? Anything? Mike?
The hygienics was at Oxbridge on Monday. Spent about 6 hours there testing, destructive testing to come up with the plan for demolition of the building,
Right,
all that information. He said he'd have a report to me next week.
good. He didn't see anything other than what you already know is there?
No, pretty much, he knows the building very well.
Okay.
So, yeah, he no surprises.
Good,
So,
That's great news.
yeah.
Thanks. So there's no need for him to come back next week? He was able to get it?
No, he won't be back on the 9th. He said he completed what he...
Great.
Good. Anything else?
The survey was done too.
The environmental survey,
No, the environmental survey was done.
right.
By the consulting environmental engineers that are working for SLAM.
Not Landon?
No, not, Langdon's done, and he's paid, and that's complete. But there was a company, Alfred,
Oh, was this for the testing of the soil?
The geotech?
excuse me?
The geotechnical?
Yeah, the geotech.
Oh, yeah, we wanted them to do that.
Yeah, they came out Monday, a week ago Monday, and did a visual survey of the property and walked the whole site. She spent probably about 3.5, 4 hours at the building. And then they noted, certain things like where the oil tank is, where the oil burners are, where the sewer lines and utilities run in and out. They were going to come back if they had spots where they wanted to do environmental soil testing, and then also this is preliminary laying out where they're gonna do the testing to test the type of soil we have as far as for foundation.
For
barriers,
foundation
things
work,
like that,
right.
yeah.
So they haven't done any test boring?
No, they haven't done them yet, no.
Okay. Well, they're underway. That's right, we put that over to them, to SLAM, to have in their contract, just add to the fee.
And that's good too, because they're managing that information so that they're feeding themselves with the information in the time frame they need it, so that's.
Yeah, and we also thought that we didn't want to get in a situation, well, he said that the soil was okay, and now we find the foundation won't work. We said, no, that'll be on you're doing the structural steel, and you're doing that work. You guys have the boring responsibility. Good. Is there anything else?
In terms of the budget and cost tracking, are we setting up a separate meeting to kind of discuss that in detail?
We haven't done it yet, we are. Oh, yeah, there's a lot to go over in that, yeah. There's a lot to go over. That, we have that, and we also have a special meeting on just security, which are separate, above and beyond all the other stuff that's going on. Anything else? Take a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor? Thank you all very much.